What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Severe MMA. My name is Sean Sheehan, joined today by Ian O'Neill as we look ahead to PFL Dubai, and it's a big night for Irish mixed martial arts as our very own Paul Big News Hughes fights for the PFL lightweight title. In the main event, we had Kayla Loughran in a clash of ex-Cage Warriors champions against Jack Cartwright on the main event. On the main card. And we have John Mitchell in a tough matchup against Zayunikov, opening up the card, or the second, I believe, from the start of the card. So a big fight for the Cork man as well. Plus, we have Sergio Pettis, Magomedov. We have the light heavyweight title between Corey Anderson and Dovled Yashimuradov, and Archie Culligan versus JJ Wilson as well. A stacked card, Ian. One of the best cards the PFL have ever put on for my money. I saw Andy Hickey and a few more people giving out about it, saying, oh, geez, there's no promotion or anything for this yet. But early in the week, my preview came out today. I have an interview with Paul out. I know you got lads on the Old Triangle as well, and obviously we're doing this. You have the preview in the Old Triangle. I feel like this one's going to heat up, and by the time Friday comes, it's an earlier card as well, which is probably shit for you, actually thinking about it. But we might get it. We might get a. Jesus, I heard the COVID's going around again.
I'm starting to get a bit sick there, Shawnee.
I can hear it in your voice. What's the level of anticipation from you from this card? Because I'm very excited.
I'm really, really excited about this card too. Like, it truly is really stacked with lots and lots of good fights, and it's a real credit to Irish MMA that we have a lad of our own up at the top of the card in one of the most highly anticipated fights of the year so far. I mean, we were looking forward to the first fight. It happened in January, and obviously after what played out in that fight, we're really, really excited to see, and lots of other people too. That fight really captured the imagination of, I think, the more broader audience and the US audience as to what we've been talking about for a long time in the quality and how good Paul Hughes is as a fighter at an elite level. And, when we look down at the rest of the card, I think, it is littered with really great fights too. Obviously, the rematch between Corey Anderson and Yakshimuradov for the light heavyweight championship. I think Sergio Pettis and Magomedov is a great fight too. Archie Culligan, JJ Wilson, obviously Kaelin's fight and John Mitchell's fight as well. Really, really good. I think people have been critical. I've been critical of PFL, but I want to give them absolute maximum credit for, they've been having tremendous fight cards throughout this year, 2025. I think now we're finally starting to see some decisions made outside the cage that will add a little bit of stability to the promotion as well. What I'm talking about here, first of all, is just cutting out of the nonsense of these multiple titles. At the top of the bill, we have the PFL lightweight championship, and the co-main event is the light heavyweight championship. That's the way it should be done. Cut out all of the confusion. Two of the very best fighting in both of those divisions. And I'm very, very excited to see what goes down. I mean, it's at an awkward time for me here in Canada. As I said, temperature is racing here a little bit.
You're looking very pale.
I never know what might happen. I don't know. I might have to, I have to go and see the doctor there and and get an old sick note on Thursday night.
Dr. Sheehan is here. The Dr. Podgod is here if you need a sick note.
What do I need? What do I need this weekend? An absolute dose of fights to get myself back right before.
What's that? What's that? MMA fever, I think I have. Let's talk about the main event. 251 days in between the first meeting of Paul Hughes and Usman and Magomedov and the second meeting. In the middle, the Bruno Miranda fight, almost smack bang in the middle. 42 seconds. What do you think that? Because I've spoken about that this week, and I think that's a big advantage for Paul Hughes. Like, to have a camp, have no damage, have another win. You're not coming off a loss anymore, and now you're going back into like the biggest fight of your life with great preparation and another 4 months again to prepare for this fight. This to me is just perfect for Paul Hughes. Really, do you see advantages for both, or do you think it's more of an advantage for Paul Hughes?
I really, truly think that it's more of an advantage for Paul here, for a couple of reasons. I think Paul has always had what I would describe as unwavering belief in himself and his abilities. And obviously, coming off of a loss is never ideal. But we've seen how he has bounced back from the 2 defeats in his career to Vucenic and obviously to Nurmagomedov in the last fight that these guys had. And his bounce back ability is unbelievable. And I think the importance of getting that Miranda fight in between the last fight is to really and truly give him that unwavering belief heading into this fight as well. Whereas that, whatever you portray yourself to be in public, it's never nice to lose a fight. There must be some deep down doubts as, have I done this right? Have I done that right? Am I good enough right now? Going out there and absolutely wiping the floor with Bruno Miranda, the way he did it, the fashion that he did it in front of his home audience, that has given him the foundation to really go hammer and tongue at his fight camp here. And I think, that superpower he has with the belief in his abilities as well. You can see it. I've never been in the same room as the guy, but I can feel it as well when he talks, the way he walks around, the way he portrays himself. And when I look across to his opponent and the champion, even though this is labeled as the vacant lightweight championship, but with Usman or Nurmagomedov, I don't see that. I didn't see it the first time around. And I'm getting, worse kind of body language vibes from him this time around, almost like he doesn't want to be here. And it's a guy who doesn't want to be here against a guy who would absolutely do anything to get this opportunity and to become PFL champion. And I think when you encapsulate all of that together, that's what makes this a truly great fight. And can Nurmagomedov get up and perform as well as he did in the first fight? Because I think we're going to see a better performance from Paul Hughes in this fight. And it was, whatever we think, whether you thought he won the first fight, whether you thought he lost the first fight, obviously the judges thought that he lost. I'm wondering, can Nurmagomedov get up for this fight? I think, he needs this fight. He needs an opponent like Paul Hughes himself to prove his own greatness. And we have to give him that credit. He's 19-0. He did get the win the last time out. And, these two guys are two special athletes. And it's really great when we have these kind of fights. And I'm so excited that it's just a couple of days away.
Yeah, and I think that was the point I was going to make as well about Usman and like his mindset coming in here. I think I was talking about it on the SevereMMA podcast, or maybe the Q&A after being on the media call there last week, where like we all, I think the general consensus was that Usman didn't want this rematch and would rather have either fought someone else or maybe gone to the UFC, obviously with Islam Makhachev now going up to 170. There's an opening for team Nurmagomedov to have another UFC lightweight in there. And like on that call, he just confirmed all that. Like he really sounded like he'd want to be anywhere else. He called the fight a unanimous decision, even though it wasn't a unanimous decision. He was like, Paul Hughes is a good fighter, but like, I wanted to move on after it was clear. The last fight was clear. Whereas it sounds like, as you were kind of alluding to there, Usman and Nurmagomedov would rather be anywhere else fighting anyone else. And there's no one else in the world Paul Hughes would rather fight anywhere else at any other time. So that's a very different mindset. Now, that might not matter because that might build up the pressure on Paul Hughes and it might work against him. And it might
be
help
trying to sell Usman. He could be trying to sell wolf tickets as well, Shawnee. He could be training like a demon behind the scenes.
Yeah,
and I'm sure he is.
I'm sure he is. Like Habib is the sort of guy as well who, preparing him for a fight like this, and he's a lot of respect for Paul Hughes. That he won't let him, not train, because all those lads from that team are going to be unbelievably well prepared physically, tactically, and all of that. But mentally is another thing, and I think that's the only question coming in here. Like, what will the mentality of Usman be? Like, And maybe he will think, maybe he did think the first fight is easy and it'll benefit him in here, and he'll, do everything much more calmly maybe than Paul Hughes will, and he'll end up winning the fight. But that's not generally how things work out in sports or in mixed martial arts even. I'm very interested to see how that works itself out. Like, just quickly on the first fight, Ian, and I'll throw it over to you then. Like, that first fight, I think the general consensus was that Paul Hughes started slowly, came into the fight, and it was very, very close. Obviously we had the low blows, we had the clash of heads, we had the cut, we had that, 2 or 3 minutes there waiting for the fight to restart. And the point I've been making all week and will make again here is that I think there will be big occurrences on this fight as well, but very different. I think there'll be big takedowns at big moments from either guy. I think there's going to be a knockdown or two. There's going to be someone caught in a submission. There's going, and maybe not all of those things, but some of those things that are, we could look at this fight as a straight up A versus B. We could look at it like, oh, Paul Hughes just needs to up the pace. He didn't start quick enough first time around. But like, will it come down to that this time? I think that's unlikely. I think it'll come down to like a big factor, something big that happens. I think it's going to be a close fight, Ian. I think it's going to go 5 rounds, and it could be one of those where there's a swing round in the third or the second or the fourth or wherever it might be, and someone landing that big, takedown and a big elbow later, like landing a shot to the body that, oh, did that hurt him type of thing, or something like that, could just snatch this fight away. I'm really excited for this. Like, this is a weekend of rematches. We'll talk about the co-main event in a moment. Obviously, in the UFC, we have the rematch as well. We have a preview out for that. We'll have that out tomorrow as well on YouTube here. But this rematch, I think a lot of people, and we just recorded a preview for Ankalaev and Pereira, and both of us kind of have the same idea of like the changes that might be made. And I think we're not breaking any ground here. I think there's kind of a consensus on that. What do you think the changes will be made here? Because I think that is the first fight was a very complicated fight, a very odd fight with a lot of stoppages and things. Is it too simple to say, oh, Paul Hughes needs to start faster? Or is that too simple to not say, maybe?
I think in certain regards, like, I've been kind of thinking over and back about this, and like, some of the analysis that I've done already is that I do truly feel that Paul didn't start fast enough in the first fight. But that being said, though, that the conservatism in the early stages of the fight gave him the ability to really put his foot on the gas in rounds 3, 4, and 5. I think maybe there just has to be a little bit more of the teetering and the balance of when Paul puts his foot on the gas at certain times of the fight. And we have to remember Paul at 14-2, and in these 5-round elite level fights is very, inexperienced in certain terms, so he would have learned a massive amount off of that first fight with Nurmagomedov in certain regards. And I think, he'll bring those lessons into it, where I think the big thing, that a major factor in the first fight for me, was momentum, right? And how the momentum shifted with situations, like you said, in the fight. And I think the momentum was going in for, obviously, Nurmagomedov, I feel, had the momentum early stages of the fight, round 2, halfway to round 2, like with Nurmagomedov having a better start. I think Paul started to shift that momentum, and he brought that into round 3, and then we had the clash of heads. And I think he needed to kind of get that momentum back. And then we had the low blow, I believe, in round 4. And then he lost a little bit of that momentum again. And as he was getting it back, then the fight ended. So it's for Paul, is trying to really grab this fight by the scruff of the neck very early days, and then build upon the momentum that he can create when he's fighting a guy like Usman Nurmagomedov, and like he fights against anyone. Paul is a momentum guy. He's kind of like, you wind him up and then you let him go, and you see him like a snowball rolling down a hill. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger and grows into fights. And I just hope that the momentum doesn't get stopped some way in this fight with, maybe the possibility of another low blow, or, the way these guys move forward, there's always the possibility of a clash of heads or something. It's a fight at the end of the day. Anything can go wrong. But I definitely think that the momentum was taken from Paul, and that definitely suited Nurmagomedov. So if he can come into this fight and it's not about going in there and putting himself into fifth gear and going hammer and tong from round one. It's about getting maybe into third gear, and then going up to fifth gear for a minute, and then going back down, and maybe, going around the corner and going into second gear, and then up and down through the gears, and then see, where he can bring Nurmagomedov, because out of the two of these fighters, which one wilted the most in the first fight? I'd have to say it was Nurmagomedov.
Yeah.
And I think that Paul knows that. And I think if he can use that against Nurmagomedov and really time the momentum shifts and time when he puts on the gases and stuff those takedowns and really make Nurmagomedov work, I think he can wilt him, and he can wilt him bad. If he does it perfectly, I would think he'd almost have a good chance of getting this fight finished in the later stages. But I do agree with you. I do think we're going to see a 5-round fight here, but there's ways that, and he knows it. I think that's why he's so confident. I think he knows, based off the experience of the first fight, if he just makes a couple of those changes, he can get the job done here. And I've gone on so long here, I can't even talk about Nurmagomedov's changes. Maybe you might do me the honor.
I think I agree with what I think. Control is the word I'd nearly use to sum up what you were talking about there. Like, and that, we use control in such a wrong way in mixed martial arts. We usually think of a lad lying on top of another lad. But like, I think if Paul Hughes can control, control the swades of momentum, as you put it, for longer periods of that fight, he'll win it. And I would say the same for Usman or Nurmagomedov. And like, how do you do that? Like, I think if you're Paul Hughes, I think it's about finding an area on the feet where you have an advantage over Usman or Nurmagomedov. So where is that? And I think that's kind of like the pocket speed game, maybe, because Paul is very, very quick. Usman is very good at like landing his jab and maybe staying a foot outside of the pocket, using
and landing that kick to the body, which was successful in the first fight too. I think 100%. If you can close that gap, I definitely agree with you. Yeah,
and to kind of like, it's not even, some people say all the way out or all the way in, but I would say all the way out or all the way kind of 2 steps in, all the way into the pocket for Paul Hughes. Use that speed, get away back out, and just like stop Usman getting the jab, stop putting him in a place maybe he can get a takedown or push you against the cage, wrestle control away from him. And for Usman, I think he needs to do the same thing. He needs to keep Paul at the end of his jab, stop him from getting in the pocket or stopping him from getting all the way out. Add in a few takedowns. I think for Paul as well, adding in a takedown the odd time wouldn't hurt at all. But I think Usman, Usman, you hear the name Nurmagomedov, you think wrestler. Usman is more of a striker. There's no doubt about that. So is Paul. But both of them can wrestle, and both of them have added in even takedowns in their career in the past. So I think that's like, there are so many integers to this fight. This is a fight that is between 2 of the most high-level mixed martial artists in the world. Just because it's in PFL, people out there might think, it's not in the UFC. These 2 lads are 2 of the best. It could go lots of different ways, and I can't wait for it to happen. Like, watching back that first fight, I think Paul Hughes won it. At the time, I scored it a draw, so I had it for Usman 3-2, obviously with the point taken away. But then I had it 3-2 for Paul, watching it back with a real fine-tooth comb. And there's lots that Paul can improve on that first fight, really. Lots he can improve on. Now, there's lots Usman can improve on as well. But again, as we talked about over in the UFC preview, who could make the better adjustments and who can make the better adjustments to those adjustments who
wants it more? Who wants it more at the end of the day?
I think we already know that. I think Paul Hughes wants it more. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But sometimes wanting it too much can fucking hurt you as well. But for Paul, that hasn't been an issue for him yet. I don't think so.
No.
What's your prediction? I'm going for Paul Hughes by decision anyway. That's my prediction.
I think Paul Hughes by decision as well. And I picked Nurmagomedov ahead of the last fight. I watched it and scored it to Nurmagomedov live the last time as well. I watched it back and, leaned towards Paul, watched it back again. I was going over and back. But I think, the adjustments and the growth of Paul Hughes as a fighter and the lessons that he can learn from a loss like that, I just think that this is his time and he's going to take it with both hands.
I want to talk about a couple of other fights. I'm going to throw John Mitchell at you first, Ian, here, because he's a tough fight against Mashari Zayunikov. Watched a bit of him, and he's a very, very well-rounded fighter. big power on the feet, but well able to fight on the ground as well. You know, beat Izumi in his last fight in the PFL after beating Derek Sanders. You know, beating Damian Lapalus back in 2020 as well. A very, very good fighter, but has not been the most active fighter in the world over the last few years. Apart from 2023, he's only had one fight a year going back to 2019. So it's a tough matchup for John Mitchell. He's a big enough underdog here. But what do you think are his chances there? Because like he's a guy who has beaten some good guys as well over the last few years. Only lost to very, very good guys like Jack Kazubas, who's only lost since 2022. But John's he's a guy who can come out in one fight and wrestle, come out in the next fight and strike with you. How do you think his game has kind of gone to the level? And he's up with FAI training now as well, Ian, isn't he?
Correct. And I mean, you know, being involved in the camp, the champ camp really with Paul Hughes as well, and a bunch of other killers up there at FAI right now who are doing really, really well. I think can only do wonders for a guy like John Mitchell, to be honest. And I'm very excited to see what the results are based off what he's been doing over the last couple of months with Liam and Pat up there. And I really feel that, you know, we're going to see a really good performance from John Mitchell, as we always kind of do in the cage. He hasn't fought MMA in a little while. He's been out. He boxed a couple of fellas there, but like I said, his only loss in the last couple of years was obviously getting caught early stages of his career in that with that guillotine, and then obviously losing to Jakub Kazuba, who is a tremendous fighter and still undefeated too, I believe, in his career too. So that defeat has aged very gracefully for John Mitchell, but he's very well rounded. You know, obviously had been, you know, concentrating on the boxing, so I'd expect the hands, as always, to be fairly sharp. I think he's going to be able to use his jab very well here. He's got an excellent jab. He's got good defensive takedown ability. You know, he sprawls well. And, you know, you mentioned his wrestling game too. They were calling him his wrestling was so good, I believe, in UAE Warriors were calling him the Irish national wrestling champion as well. So we had a little bit of a giggle about that with him too. So, you know, obviously it's a tough test. He's been out of the cage for quite some time. It's how he adjusts back to all of that and how his timing is. You know, it's all well and good going out there and boxing, but, you know, timing is a lot different in mixed martial arts. And, you know, coming in here against a tough opponent, I do think he can get the job done here. But, you know, it's not going to be easy at all with the guys in front of him, Johnny.
100%. Then we have Caelan Loughran, obviously, as well, in the meeting of former Cage Warriors champions. This is his first fight in the PFL after he won against Nathan Fletcher. You know, not many people win in the UFC and are 2-2 and don't end up going back to the UFC. But I think, you know, he didn't really like the way they were treating him, and the offer that PFL Dan Hardy made him was better. And, you know, he was supposed to fight, obviously, Lewis McGrill, and he says this is a tougher matchup against Jack Cartwright. And you know what? I wouldn't necessarily disagree with him. Jack Cartwright, a very well-rounded guy, a guy I've talked up for years when he was a Cage Warriors champion, especially. But it's kind of not gone his own way over the last couple of years. You know, that weird headbutt disqualification Sylvester Miller fight. Then he lost in the Contender Series. Then he went over to Octagon and he lost to Jonas McGard over there when you're thinking maybe he's going to go to the very top. But now he finds himself in the PFL with a big opportunity against Caelan Loughran as well. But the key here for me, and I don't know about you, I think the short notice, and the fact that this is up at 140, so I think that benefits Caelan a whole lot. Like, he looks in unbelievable shape. I know I talked to him a few weeks ago as well, and the mindset seems really good with him as well. Like, I think Caelan, the way he fights and kind of holding the center of the cage is a good way to fight Jack Cartwright. You know, stave off those takedowns. The speed of Jack Cartwright in the feet is something really good, but Caelan getting that jab in there, taking that center, maybe landing a few big shots, maybe trying to get a takedown of his own might be the way to go here. How'd you see this fight going? And it's a big one for Caelan, really, isn't it? Because, like, if he wins this, he could, like, he's Sergio Pettis on an interview I did with him a couple of weeks ago, basically called him out. He's not too far away from a title. There's probably going to be a tournament next year, but you kind of need to win this fight, don't you?
You definitely do. Look, it's the start of a new chapter for Caelan, having been with the UFC and He's very hungry to get in there and showcase his abilities and the work that he's been doing over the last 6 months. And in certain ways, when you see somebody coming from the UFC, you think that they're coming on a kind of a downward spiral, but that's not the case at all with Caelan Loughran. He's coming in after a good win, a close win over Nathan Fletcher, who's a really good lad as well. And with Jack Cartwright, I think it is a more difficult fight than Lewis McGrillen-Evans. I think that Cartwright does possess a few different kind of abilities in his game that, Caelan will have had to have adjusted to over the last 3 weeks. We spoke about that on the El Triangle. But you mentioned, and I'm going to mention as well, the absolute nick that Caelan is in this fight. He's looking so lean. He said he's been working with a nutritionist now since before the Fletcher fight. And he said that's after doing wonders for his cardio. So I expect him to fight a real pace-setting fight here. And if it can go out and do that and put the pace on a guy like Jack Cartwright, I think he can kind of break him down, and he can kind of win that strength battle as well. That you said, Caelan doesn't have to get down to 135 anymore, so that's going to help his gas tank as well. And will Jack Cartwright be able to keep up at that pace? I don't think so if it goes to the later stages. Now, we cannot doubt the ability of Jack Cartwright at all. I think he's got some good power on the feet as well. If when he's moving forward, he does land heavy. Caelan can take a shot too, but that also leaves you open to some big shots too. I'd like to see Caelan use his size, really punish Cartwright when he's coming in for maybe possibly trying to take the fight down. Knees up the middle in the clinch, work that body, couple of kicks, just try and nick away at the gas tank of Cartwright. If he's successful in doing all of that, I think he goes out there and he wins this fight, pretty well. Maybe even going on to get a finish in the later stages. And I think, a big win here. He talks about, obviously the history between Lewis McGrillen-Evans. But I think you go out here, Johnny, you beat a guy like Jack Cartwright. You're not looking at Lewis McGrillen-Evans, with all due respect to him. You're looking at the people who are on this card: Magomed Magomedov, Sergio Pettis, and a couple of those big fights in the PFL 135-pound division.
Yeah.
And like Caelan said to me, if he plays his cards right over the next couple of years, he's going to get in some big fights and he's going to get paid some nice money. So here's hoping he can do that.
Yeah, and I'm as you said, and I know you said it to you, like you'll be watching that Magomedov versus Pettis fight with open arms and open eyes. That's a very interesting fight as well. Like I didn't think Pettis looked himself in his last fight. I know he had time off and was fighting a teammate and all, but I feel like Magomed is a big favourite coming into that one. I'm definitely picking him. I'm also picking Archie Colgan in his fight over JJ Wilson. I spoke to the both of them, but I was blown away by Archie Colgan. I two very nice guys, but Archie Colgan just seems to have his head and his shoulders, and
it's the it factor, isn't it, with him, Shawnee?
Really
I think
the
way he speaks, the way he carries himself inside the cage as well at 12-0. I think, me and you have been kind of talking maybe on the chase and pack and stuff like that. And this is a guy that I seen very early in his professional career, fighting under the Bellator banner. And, you could just see, sometimes you just know, even in the early stages of someone's professional career, that they've got it, they understand what abilities they have and what they can bring to the table. And the tests that he's been passing over the last little while have been very, very good too. A massive big win over Mansour Barnois, and a big test here against JJ Wilson, but one I think that he's stylistically, he has to be wary, of course, of the power and the explosiveness of a guy like JJ Wilson, but I think he has power and explosiveness himself to kind of take this fight wherever he wants it to go, really, Shawnee.
Yeah, I fought Barnoui on the feet for long periods of that fight as well, and was beating him up in the clinch. Like he's no joke. Training with Kamaru Usman on one side, training with Justin Gaethje on the other side. You couldn't ask for much more. Just before we get to the co-main event and the title fight, just two quick fights. Omar Al-Dafrawi, the PFL MENA champion, is fighting Florian Zimdeli, the PFL Europe champion. So that's a very, very interesting fight. And also
Champions League qualifier, is it? PFL Champions League qualifier. Slim Trabelsi is fighting Puya Ramani. And the two of these lads actually grappled. I watched it today. Biggest waste of 20 minutes of my life. Over in Karate Combat, a grappling match. I'm like, and Ramani is a big favourite. I think based a lot off that. But I went to watch a few of his fights because I'm a big fan of Slim Trabelsi. This Puya Ramani looks a fucking real talent at heavyweight. This lad is a really good wrestler. He won that
grappling match against Trabelsi, who is, what was he? Was he an Olympic qualifier or something? I can't remember anyway, but he hits like a truck on the feet. He's a good athlete, little bit shorter than Trabelsi, but God almighty, he's definitely a lad to watch out for. And we'll watch that heavyweight fight. But the co-main event, the light heavyweight fight, I'm going to keep this short and sweet, Ian, because like they fought once before. Corey Anderson dominated him, took him down. The rest of him was too much. Yashimurdov has improved a whole lot since then. Won the tournament last year, beating some good guys. I just don't think it's I think it's enough to make it closer. I don't think it's enough to win the fight. I think Corey Anderson goes in here. He probably wrestles him in the second or third round again and wins this fight. What do you think?
I think sometimes I think it could be even this could be like watching the first fight on fast forward a little bit in terms of I think Corey Anderson knows what he has to do to get where he needs to get to win this fight, and I think that's getting the takedown and landing some big shots. And I think when Yakhshimuradov is kind of there and before the fight, he'll obviously have the confidence that he can get it done. But when you're there and you find yourself on your back, maybe early stages in round one, again, you're like, oh my God, here we go again. And you're getting flashbacks of the first fight. I think Corey Anderson needs to kind of give him a reason not to want to be there anymore. And I think he does have the ability to do that. Now, Yakhshimuradov has had some really good performances, but I do think that Corey Anderson, Beaston 25A, has the ability to get the job done and become the light heavyweight champion as well. So I'm looking forward to it at the same time to see if he can do it. But it'll be interesting to see.
A big part of this, I think, as well, is like there's that possible Francis Ngannou fight down the line. And I know, Shoefest is there as well. No disrespect to him. He's the tournament champion. Probably deserves next. But like, Hinan Fahey is fighting Nimkov for the heavyweight title. If Fahey was to win that, I doubt Francis Ngannou is going to be fighting him again. Anderson has fought at heavyweight before. He fought Denis Goltsov last year. I could see him going up. Either way, I could see him going up if Francis doesn't come back and fighting for the heavyweight title. But you have to win this fight before you do that. And I think it's a big fight for him. So that that does bring a bit of added pressure. But I think he's well able for it, and I think he'll get the win. So we will leave it there. Thank you.
Maybe people have been maybe living under a rock, a couple of fights that fell out. We've obviously losing.
The SLSU fight as well fell out, which I didn't even know.
I just found out that this second. I'm like, what the hell happened there?
And I don't know what happened. Because like I saw him, he put up something like a week ago and he was like, getting back at it or something like that. So I think that fight has maybe been off for a while. But obviously the Artem Lava fight as well, he got a cut in training. Ian, how easy does that happen the day before the fight? Just not be wearing a bit of headgear or something like Jesus.
Yeah, headgear or something like that. You see them watching the NFL lately, and they have the big protective headgear on now. Very unfortunate. I mean, look at Artem has been in many wars, and obviously that scar tissue is very prominent there as well. But look, that's very unlucky. I know how he was really looking forward to coming back there, and it is a big loss off the card. I think it doesn't affect the card all that much overall because it's such a good card, but this has had the whole heated rivalry behind it too, and everybody loves the heated rivalry. So maybe they'll try and do that down the line. It'll be hard to know.
Indeed. All right, we will leave it there. Ian, thank you very much for joining me. If you're not following Ian, please do O'Neill MMA over on Twitter. Listen to the Owl Triangle. Listen to the SevereMMA podcast every Sunday. But for now, subscribe, like this video, tell a friend. From me and Ian, enjoy the fights this weekend, and we'll see you all next time.